welcome to part 2 of my podcast. And so the next question being who was going to do the second part of it. And really, again, there was only going to be one person to take over from, David was such a pivotal part of the kind of first half of my career. Then there's been one constant person that has been through pretty much most of the trenches with me in the second half of my career. Well, 2/3 of it, really. And it is the one and only Lee. Hello.
Hello.
Today's podcast has been sponsored by Mataki Scissors, and I'm an ambassador for the brand, and I've been using them now for about 7 months, and they have been amazing. The fact that they're a British-based company, the fact that we can pick up the phone and work with them and we can get everything sharpened with them has been absolutely unique. So today's podcast is brought to you with the help of Mataki Scissors. Big hats to fill.
Big hats to fill.
Big hats to fill. I know. This was the thing. I was maybe going to bring one for both of you to wear, and I thought I'll not do that to you. That's not fair. And it's extremely weird sitting over this side and not being in control of the flow. But I've got way more faith handing it to you than handing it to these nibs. But anyway, the only problem is we've got to bring him back.
Yeah.
For the kind of finale.
We'll do a tag team at the end.
Oh God. Right. You just nip him to shut him up and get the point.
I'll give him a wee kick under the table.
The good thing is it makes me sound concise, which I never do. So it's absolutely perfect. Right.
So on that note, will we go back a bit? Because I'm sure there's a whole bunch of stuff maybe from earlier that we might that we just sort of skimmed over a wee bit. So let's go back and maybe talk a wee bit more about how you got involved. Like, I was your assistant, so that's why I'm here in this chair interviewing you at this point, because I was your assistant in Buchanan Street for a couple of years, and we had a great relationship, and I'm still here. So how did you get involved with the assistant show, and what was going on in your career and your life at that time?
I got to do the first one, would have been 99, and it wasn't great. I'd been married, just got divorced, really took my eye off the ball in the salon, and saw the idea of, because the franchises had all started happening, and they were all, I'm pretty sure, I'm sure right up to Stirling had probably opened by that point, and I just felt that it was getting further away from me than getting nearer, and it's the only, I probably had 2 rocky moments and 2 sliding door moments in my career where I could go, right, no, this is finished. I need to go and do something else, or roll the sleeves up and go, right, I need to get into this. And by chance, John had organised the assistant show in the Arches, and it was in the smaller of the ones at the back end, and he was tying in. There was a festival or a series of gigs on, so the stage was going to be there, and basically we were just going on before the stage got taken down. We just had this opportunity to go on, and he was like that to me. He went, listen, do you want to come? And I don't think I'd done anything, maybe done wee bits and bobs, but I hadn't done anything big for ages and ages, and probably didn't. I've went through a couple of periods where nobody believes this, right, but I get sick of the sound of my own voice and feel that I've got actually nothing of any sort of worth to actually say, right? And at that point, I just, oh no, I'm just doing it, right? I said yes, and just done it, and then kind of between John and I, sort of fleshed out the kind of idea of the sort of running of the show, and then that's usually when I excel. It's a bit like the head sheet, right? In that, right, is this the rules? Right, well, how can I maximise this within this set of rules? So, we're going to be starting here, we're going to be finishing here, they're coming on, they're coming off, you're going to do this bit, you're going to do that bit, and I go, right, okay, well, I can go a wee bit daft there, or a big bit daft there, or I can do this and I can do that. So once I've got that, that's when all the kind of nonsense comes. So that was big. That was absolutely big. And we did, God, all of these things were plagiarised off of everything I grew up watching. Like, nothing's original, right? I've ripped it off. I mean, you're sitting, you get the Blues Brothers over there. We came on stage and we did the thing. When they come on stage at the gig, he's got a briefcase handcuffed to him and he's got his microphone in the briefcase and his harmonica. So I had my notes, a bottle of beer and my microphone and that, and it was handcuffed to somebody. That's and then they had to take it back off and all that. And then we also started the thing where I had a fake shirt and tie on and collar and cuffs, and somebody came on to take the collar and cuffs off and all that, and we were getting into trouble because the jacket comes off and it was Buchanan Street rules, and obviously I was introducing Buchanan Street, but we were never Salon of the Year, so we were never last. One of the rules of the three that we did together, the three ones, was that you had to be Salon of the Year to get last, and then finally we got there. But the second one, so after the first one, I was back. It was like absolutely back. I had that.
So is that what gave you the motivation, do you think? Do you think that's what really...
Totally, absolutely. I had to, so as soon as the finale happened, I absolutely had a total breakdown in the toilets. Like, total, everything. Tears, snotters, pee, jobby, the whole shebang. Just in a cubicle, like, and it was obviously everything that had been on me at the time just came out for doing that show and getting to do it, and it being good, you know, that way, because just the idea of doing it and it being crap, it's a nightmare. I hate that. I'd rather not do it, which is the other huge mistake, right? I mean, we're talking about the podcast and put the podcast together. They've been telling me to do this for 6 years, and I've been going, well, why? What's the point? I'm not going to be Joe Rogan, so there's no point doing it, or there's already a brilliant hairdressing one, and trying to find the angle and all that. So the idea that we did it, you know, and at that point, my job was just the compere, right? John, the first two, pretty much, John put the whole thing together, and then I kind of took a wee bit more of an organising role in the second one, and then the mental third one was all my doing. But the second one, I mean, that was Elvis. We ripped everything off with Elvis, you know, because the other thing Alan would do was we would take over the cinema. So we would, because the problem was you guys never got to see it. You did all this amazing work, and then you never got to see the thing. So we'd make it into a film, and then we'd have a premiere in the old Odeon cinema. The first two was the Odeon cinema, the third one was the IMAX.
Yeah.
And we'd take you there. So knowing that, then you had to, well, we need to go daft in the second one for things that can happen on the screen. So talking earlier about being into American football, it was the coach of the Houston Oilers always used to leave 2 tickets for Elvis at the box office in case he ever decided to come back and watch an American football game, right? Just always did it. So that idea came into my head, and I'm like, right, well, the whole thing's then got to be about Elvis, innit? So we, sure enough, left 2 tickets at the box office for Elvis. There was a seat at the end of the catwalk beside Alan with a quarter pounder and cheese reserved for the king. That sat there. We came on to The Wonder of You, and we're handing out the silk scarves and all that, and the 4 girls were in the big leather, they were trying to rip off the 68 comeback special, the black leather with the collar, and they were the Riccardo Corvi and the 4 L's, but it was Lubo, Lennon, Lambert and Larsson, which were obviously Celtic players, so everybody's booing and all that kind of stuff. But the genius one was that during Buchanan Street show, which again, we did a skit where I wasn't allowed to introduce it, so Stuart, my nephew, was in Australia at the time, so we phoned him live from the stage and he introduced Buchanan Street, right? What people don't know is that the phone line didn't work and he didn't pick the phone up, and it was my pal John Spears who was there behind the stage kidding on that he was Stuart. It was never.
Why do I not know this?
Never Stuart. It was never Stuart. Show's got to go on. Show's got to go on. But we did the whole thing, and then I'm like, that's the guy went, right, can we mic up this phone? He went, he says, oh, I can't get a phone line into the PA. I'm like, so that was that. So no, it was a guy, it was my pal John Spears. That's hilarious.
So
he did that, And then, but during the Buchanan Street show, which was half Sinatra, half the Sex Pistols, My Way, Guido appears, full white Vegas outfit, comes through the crowd, sits on the seat, eats the cheeseburger, gets up, goes away. So not everybody saw him. So people were just going, did you see Elvis? What are you talking about? Did you see Elvis? So it wasn't till we went to the cinema, because we'd got him videoed, and then we had Elvis cam, and the wee box came up and he'd sit and eat the cheeseburger. So it was always about doing daft stuff like that. And then the problem then was the third one. Can you remember the third one in the fruit market?
Yes.
Right. So that was, because the problem then was we couldn't get the Archies, and we managed to get the fruit market, and I'm like, this is ginormous. Right? I mean, it was huge. The state. There
was an issue with the floor, was there not? Because it's all those little cobbles.
Yeah, the whole thing. Well, that was it. We were just thinking there's going to be 1,200 maniacs in here going nuts, and we're all going to break their legs, which nobody did. It was amazing, because John did that amazing thing where he had like half of Great Western Road come through the back of the stage, and there was millions of people. But we did so many things with that. I mean, we did the whole thing where we did the film where I'd fallen asleep in the house, and I'd slept in for the thing and pulled the covers back, and we were in the tux, and we drive the bike, and we looked like E.T. and come on stage, and that was Hold On, I'm Coming. We did all that stuff. We ripped off the Blues Brothers the whole way through that as well, all the time. Did loads of bits of that, because the premise with that was it was always going to be my last one. I was going to hand over to this girl was going to take over from me, so that was the whole premise at the end. But the big one with that one was we were Salon of the Year at the time. So we actually had won it. And come on with the big microphone thing, loud Taylor, Salon of the Year, going mental. And then I went, as usual, I'm not allowed to introduce it, and blew Alan away, because we'd managed to get Trevor Sorby to introduce Buchanan Street. But what we'd done is we'd cut it up so that it looked like I was talking to him live. So there's a wee guy hiding under the stage going that, and I would ask him the question, and then the guy would press play. I mean, it was that rudimental, it's not like how it is now, it was that rudimental. But Alan was on a wee raged platform, and I could see his eyes were like, how's that happened, And then that was a particularly great show, because we did Rage Against the Machine, and we had the I Have a Dream speech, and we had we had all those Deer Hunter lights and all that kind of stuff. So that was great. And then my favourite bit of that was leaving to Bring Me Sunshine with Morecambe and Wise. So it was huge, and off the back of winning Salon of the Year, and off of the back of just firing all cylinders, because you're managing B Street by this point. You're teaching at night time. You're putting these shows together. Probably still doing a bit of presentation stuff.
And B Street was going like a fair. I mean, there was every one of those sections had a stylist on it.
No, it was wild. It was wild. I mean, that was the days when your client would go to get shiatsu and come back and their seat was gone.
Yeah.
It's just like, you'd get somebody, make sure you put your bag on there, or could you leave your coffee on the chair, or whatever it was. It was, and and those times won't come back, just because of the nature of hairdressing and how it's changed and how long it takes to look after a client. All the reasons that there are, and it was flying. But the thing that was amazing about that period, and it is the one bit that I would love to get back, and we'll go through later on reasons why we're trying to that, is we were producing you guys. That's the thing. There was a period of time where there would have been 10 of you that could walk into any salon, because that was always my goal, right? Because that's what Alan Linda did with us. They just left you in a position to be brilliant anywhere. Whether you stayed with us, whether you didn't stay with us, whether you went to work somewhere else, whatever, our job was to make you the best version of yourself, and be able to walk in anywhere and go, can I get a job? And then they go, yeah. Obviously, we didn't want you walking in anywhere, and we wanted you staying with us. But that was our first fundamental goal. And also, the good old do unto others thing. It's my job to look after you the way I was looked after before me. And I would hope that we did it. you know, and by that time you and Ray were obviously doing loads of the teaching with me and helping me with all that kind of stuff, and then you guys went on to fly with that, and we created, because they're still on your Instagram, and they're still on your Facebook, and they're still amazing hairdressers, and they're still out there doing it, and whatever that magic dust was at that period, that's the one thing that I strive to get back. That's, everybody always goes, what's your competition with my salon now? And I go, Buchanan Street, 1996. That's my competition, because as far as I'm concerned, that's the best anybody did anywhere ever at any one point in time on all facets, right? So turnover, profit, hairdressing, clients, training, team members, assistants, output, every tick that you would go and just pat yourself on your back and think, I can't believe my salon's done all that. B Street was doing that at that point, and that's, you know, that's the goal. But off the back of all of that, obviously Alan must have went, oh aye, he's back. And after winning Salon of the Year, doing that particular assistant show, we were away in Stirling, and he's like, that, right, what we doing? A bit of shop, you know? And that was it.
And that was it. So what year was that then?
So the show was 2001, and the Congress and everything, and winning Salon of the Year and going into, so it was basically 2001 into 2002, and
then I was away 2003. So I went from Buchanan Street down to the first Wee Academy. Yeah.
So by the point of you going, Air was already getting built.
Yep.
And it was already meant to be happening. So the middle of 2001, Alan and Willie came to me going, right, Belfast. There was a couple of the salons under Willie's stewardship that he felt could maybe do a twist. Put me in there and use Willie's Academy as then the Rainbow Room Academy, because obviously the unique feature is everything's built through the Academy, so that there's a core base and that the message is the same, and hopefully the standards are the same throughout the salons that you go to. So you couldn't just rock up to another country and just start and do it a different way. So the idea was then that within Willie's setup there would be us, and you know, but I must admit I get cold feet for, you know, Riccardo, Giovanni, Corvi, right, working in Belfast, and just in my head I just thought, oh, you know, there's a little tinge that I kind of sometimes regret it, you know, and I really wanted my brother to come with me and work with me at the time as well, and I knew for a fact he was not coming to Belfast, right? So I'd said, what about Dublin? Because Dublin was on fire, it was like right at the height of the Celtic Tiger, and the weird thing about that was Schwarzkopf were looking to build, they were buying back the contract for Ireland. Henkel UK had sold it off, and maybe not happy how it was going. They were going to buy it back. They were looking about building an academy in Dublin. So the idea was I'd have a salon next door to the academy, or whatever the building would be, and then I'd also be the sort of face of the academy for them, but then also it would be the Rainbow Room Academy as well. But the numbers were astronomical. Alan came back with a break-even figure. Now, the weird thing for me was it was the same break-even figure as Buchanan Street was doing anyway. So on paper, to me, with no consequences of it, it didn't look like a scary number, because I'm going, well, that's what we're having to do just now. You know, like, yeah, you've had 20 years of legacy to get to doing that. But also, and the fact of the matter is that if it didn't work, it wasn't just my house we were going to lose, it was everybody's. So that didn't seem right. And then weirdly, in amongst that period, the opportunity for Air came up, and by that time, for all the reasons that it was, I was done in B Street. I was done, and it was again kind of a bit of a sliding door moment, and this is either happening or it's not happening, and I jumped and I took the opportunity. So that was kind of, I think that was all signed off. I was driving down to my cousin's wedding in Leeds. Alan phoned going, do you want it? I'm like, yeah. So
quite a big change, isn't it? Going from like Glasgow city centre, you know, the family chippies were like the city centre and stuff as well. So like, you know, predominantly from your teens right the way into your 20s, like you've spent all that time right in Glasgow in the town. So moving to the beach was a big deal.
It was brutal. I'm kind of known for walking down the middle of Buchanan. Like, I get slagged off because I walk down the middle of Buchanan Street. I don't walk down.
Well, remember we took chairs down and just started cutting hair one day in the middle of Buchanan Street.
There's just something about that bit of the town. Whether it was Royal Exchange Square, whether it was Buchanan Street, whether in my growing up Union Street was just an amazing place. And obviously, we weren't at home for most of the 90s and early 2000s. Do you know what I mean? We were out, when we went out as a group, we went out as a team, we were all out all the time.
In Bar Bazaar.
We were in Bar Bazaar and, God love the tunnel and all that. And let's not go there. But we were known, positively, I think. It was always like, oh, God, I work there. They all look like they're having a laugh, And Alan always talked about that, a team that drinks together, stays together and all that kind of stuff. And that torch was handed to me, I felt, anyway, and we had a cracking gang. So I really struggled because obviously in my head, I was going to be in the Merchant City, or I was going to be in Argyle Street, or I was going to maybe be in the South Side or whatever, and you were all coming with me. As far as I was concerned, like you, Ray, Heather, all that gang. Mike Cheryl was still there as well at the time, and I'm like, right, you're all coming with me. We'll open, and then it was like, oh no, I'm going 40 miles down the road, and the motorway didn't exist then. Remember, it was the old days, 77, and it felt like the moon.
Like, where can we put you and keep you out of trouble for a
Well,
minute?
that was the furthest westerly point. They couldn't get me across the sea, so they put me right beside it. But the fact of the matter is, I struggled for 5 years to really actually. I had massive imposter syndrome for the first 2 years.
About having the salon, or you struggled about being so far away from Glasgow, or both?
Both. I had, for the first 2 to 3 years, I had absolute imposter syndrome of owning the salon, because I wasn't that much older than my stylist, the team that were working with me, and I'm like, why have I got this? And why am I in the position to lead them? And blah blah, But it wasn't until you're sitting going, well, that's right, you spent all summer in Ibiza. And I didn't, and I did grow up under Alan, I did stay late, eventually you've got to go back and what did I do to get to where I got? It wasn't a fluke, and it just hand me it, that way, but, for a wee while, took a wee bit to go, actually, right, I'm the guy here, I'm doing this, but I really struggled. I mean, I stayed in Glasgow for 5 years, I didn't move, I had a wee spell, just kind of out of the city, for about 1.5 years, and then back into the city centre, and then I was basically giving Shell all my money. I had some ridiculous alpha at the time, and the fuel economy was atrocious, and you would not want to know my fuel bill, because by that time I was doing 7 days a week. So
let's go back to opening air, because it didn't actually open in time, did it?
No. Our friends at South Ayrshire Council decided that it would be a really good idea if they stopped the building, and it was meant to open in November of 2003, and we didn't get into the April of 2004.
So a good 6 month delay.
Aye. Now the problem with that was, and thanks to Alan and the backup, I had my whole team. I'd interviewed everybody, I had all my assistants, and I was the only one that had all that. Everybody else just opened with a couple of people. I had everything. Guido was helping and learning in Buchanan Street. I had 3 stylists, I had 3 assistants and myself, and we were ready to go. Now they were going mental, because they're like, I don't want to work in Glasgow, I don't want to have to do this travelling, and they weren't getting to see their career build or attack the clientele that they thought they were getting, and they were maybe getting scared that they were losing their clientele from down the road, although a couple of them, I didn't actually poach anybody from particular salons. So that was a real concern. But what we did was attack the community. So schools, women's groups, colleges, we went and did hair shows once a week, so that at least they felt like they were doing something at home. We're coming, get the jungle drums going, that we're going to be here, and then sort of hope for the best. But I mean, you couldn't make it up. There was a hair up seminar in 15 with 3 weeks to go, and the Friday before that, Alan had phoned and went, right, Doogie, it's definitely opening that date. Oh, amazing, that's brilliant. So I came in on my bike, and it was the week after I'd finished paying it. 4 years HP, finished paying it the week before, went to the hair up seminar, and I was taking products to my mum and dad's chippy for my niece's birthday, and a guy comes out the junction, scones right into me. I break my collarbone. So I'm lying underneath this guy's car, punching the driver's door, swearing at the top of my lungs that I was going to absolutely kill this guy.
Because we're what, 24, 48 hours out. It was opening this weekend.
It was opening that week, and that was me. I'm lying on the floor, broken collarbone, broken ribs, and I'm like, oh, you can't make it up. So, sure enough, bosh, I'm away, get all that done. So now I don't have my kind of Cheerio to B Street, and that's the bit that actually really bugged me. You know, let's not even go into the end of B Street, right? But I didn't get the right Cheerio, which was weird. It's a bit like a footballer getting sold and not getting to play his last home game. Get to do that. And I never got my Cheerio for B Street, so that kind of felt unended. And then we're down in the salon, so then I'm not getting to play with my new toy. You know, so we're cleaning it up on the Saturday night we're cleaning it up because the mirrors were arriving, and they were all wrong. All 12. So I was the first person to get the floating mirrors that everybody gets now. And the unique design thing was the way that the shelf was built onto the unit where the light would be, and it would all light up, and it'd all be very sexy and lovely, and they were all 1.5 inches too high up, so you could see the light fitting, and it didn't come through. And Doogie's crestfallen, obviously, you know, and I'm like, are you having a laugh? Are you having a laugh, right? And he's, oh, let's just open, he's like, no, we can't. So sure enough, these guys came back the next day and bonded them all. They came with all this glass and bonded all the sections together with these giant big lights and everything to get it through and get it opened. So that would have been the Sunday. We opened on the Tuesday. So the same thing as everybody talks about. Monday night, Gina, Gus, Doogie, we're all scraping, Guido and I, we're all scraping, well, I'm doing it with one hand, right? We're all scraping the floor and tidying, everybody's doing the thing, getting it set up. We've got the 9,000 bottles of perm lotion that Alan had pammed us off with to get rid of it. And so we've got the whole...
We all want that perm lotion
back. We all want it back now, you know? And the thing was, at the time, I mean, it was amazing. The salon was amazing, right? I mean, and to Doogie's credit, it's never really dated. I always hated the floor. My floor's a disaster, right? And it's partly the chip shop boy in me, because the floors were always a thing. The Italians did a real big deal about the floor and the chippy. Mine's is just, it's hilarious, you see my floor. But I'm also the last salon with a foot-size tile. You know, when the academy opened and everything, you've got the big giant sexy tiles and all that. So that's the only thing, but it's never dated. And it was amazing. But the weird thing was, we opened on the Tuesday and we had a kind of orientation, role play morning. How's it going to work? How are we going to do what we do? Where are we going to go? All that. And then in the afternoon, we just dragged people in from the street and did self-promotions. We didn't do... The first paid customer was in the Wednesday. So in my head, when I was putting my first week in to get my figures out, the computer wouldn't work. Why is it not working? Why is it not working? And it was like because I was putting the Tuesday in and there was no money had went in the till on the Tuesday. So it was the Wednesday. It was my dad's birthday. So my dad had died 2 years before, 2002. He died 2 years before that. And for all of the stuff that had happened, for all of the rigmarole we've went through, finally get the thing opened, and then it not really opened on the right day, and then for it to be that, and for it to be his birthday, it was just like, all right, maybe this is going to be okay. And then that was it. The beach began.
So that was 2004 now. Yeah. So how was your first couple of years?
The first year was unbelievable. A bit like everybody says, it was unbelievable. I mean, we did start quick. We bounced through it. You know, we got really busy really quickly. Obviously, once I could actually do my column, it's really interesting actually, because I've just been throwing out all my... I finally went into the office and went, right, I've still got my trend sheets from back then, and I was going through them, and the numbers... It's funny how your brain plays tricks on you. You think, I wasn't really that busy when I first started, and I'm looking at the numbers and I went, I would bite your hand off for that stylist right now, you know, with our average bills doing those number of clients. So it was great, and the team were brilliant. They got really on board. Brother's wife had passed away during it, and that made that a wee bit tricky. So he wasn't really, kind of in it in that kind of period. But what became really apparent really quickly, because the plan was to extend the salon into the whole building. There's 3 floors in the building. Alan and the team had owned the whole thing, and the idea was then to move up, and then the roof would have then been either a kind of small academy or a training area or a photo studio or whatever it was going to be. And within the first year, you're looking on a Saturday going, I'm out of seats. You know, where am I putting these people? And the team actually came to me and went, can we open on a Sunday? And I had no desire to open this. I was still like everybody else, still going out, still wanted to be out in the town. I wanted to be seen in Glasgow. I wanted to be doing all that. And also, hand on heart, I don't think anybody should work on a Sunday. Right now that a petrol station can give you petrol without a human being there, I think the loss of society in the West is down to the fact that we don't have a day where we all just go for dinner and see our families. So, and I'm also not a hypocrite. I wouldn't want my team to do anything I wasn't prepared to do, because everything else we had done. We had cleaned the salon, we had been in the art team, we had done the shows, we had done the clients, we were hitting the figures. Anything we were asking anybody to do, we'd done it. But the one thing I'm like, I don't want to work or something. We'd done it a bit in Buchanan Street, but the other problem with that was just full on chip shop mindset of, why do you all want to be in here on a Sunday when I'm not here? Right, so all your pals going to get their hair done, and all my shampoo going to... Now, nonsense, right? Absolute nonsense that was given to me from my past. Whereas, I mean, when I first started Buchanan Street, and I saw Alan handing people keys to the salon, I'm like, we weren't even allowed to tell people where we lived when we had the chip shop, you know, which backfired and we got robbed when I was 11, right? But anyway, so even the idea of that blew my mind. So that was a massive mind shift for me. But what we decided was, right, we'll open on a Sunday. So we picked a particular weekend, so that was going to be the last team night out, where we could all have a hangover together. It was all going to be fine. And in those days, there was no internet, so it was posters and flyers, and we're opening on a Sunday, and no TikTok, so it wasn't happening. So we did all that, and it blew up straight away, because it's like the wedding triangle down there. You know, you've got all these wedding hotels. So you were doing guests, you were fixing colour all day on a Sunday. Before skin testing, people had got their hair done the Saturday. It was a disaster, you know. And we were the only people that were opening on a Monday down there. Never mind opening on a Sunday. So standbys, walk-ins. If you were the new stylist on the floor, you were guaranteed a column and a clientele by working in there. But exactly how it was always going to happen was half the team get pregnant and half the team left about a year into being open on a Sunday. So, you know, I'm a dog with a bone. I'm not giving up on anything. I'll die trying. So yours truly did all the Sundays, right? To the point where it was 7 days a week by then. I mean, I was out yesterday having lunch with my pals, watching them play jazz, and they were all wetting themselves because they're just going, they were calling it my big day out because they never get to see me on a Sunday. So they were still taking the mickey from that period. But I still do them. I don't do as many for sort of health reasons and all that. But, you know, again, I do the same amount as everybody else does, because I'm not going to ask anybody not to do, you know, what I would do.
So that was your first 2 years, and were you still involved in the art team? Was there still assistant shows going on?
No.
Or were you just like head down, focus, get this salon going?
By that point, and everybody's probably said the same thing, it was all encompassing. You know, you really had to take a back seat, to the point where, you know, we were getting, at that point, we would get an industry giant up to the academy to do a Sunday or do a day, do a demo. And I was the one that never got to go. You know, there would be me, an assistant in a salon, to let all the team get to go. The one that always sticks in my throat is Akin Kinesi, because everybody got to see Akin. It was unbelievable. And I'm down there paying the bills to let everybody go. And none of the people are in the organisation now and work with me. And they got to sit in a room with that guy for a few hours and see him work, and I never got to. So that one always sticks in my throat. And that then became a motivator later on in my mindset as well. But no, it was all, you can't play at it. You just can't. So all of the facets that you were doing as a manager of Buchanan Street, you're doing all of them in that business, being that stylist, being that manager, being that teacher, try to be all that motivator, do all that as well. And I kind of started to lose, you know, within 5 years. It's always that thing about you lose your entire team within 5 years. And the day I opened 5.1, there was nobody in that business bar myself and my brother that had started with me at that point. And that was a big wake up for me, because Buchanan Street wasn't like that. You know, there was always some of us that had been there for ages. So that was a big eye opener when all of a sudden you're sitting going, you know, and they were school kids, you know. It was like Chris and a couple of other girls, and they were absolute babies, and I was in doing, that was like 7 days and all the hours to keep the door open, you know.
So if we fast forward a wee bit, and then so how were you getting on a couple of years later? So what was happening in your life? Were you still living in, had you moved to Ayr by this point?
By that, so 5 years in, I was in, I'd basically got to Ayr, 2010 I'd moved to Ayr, but the issue, 2009, but the issue really was the credit crisis by then, and it was a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. I'd kind of been led down a path with my previous bank manager, and that because the turnover was great, everything was going to be fine, this was all brilliant, I had a humongous overdraft, like terrifying, and had built all that up, went down a kind of life journey that hadn't worked out, and had bankrolled aspects of that weren't making sense, had taken my eye off the ball with the turnover in the salon as well, because of what I'd kind of went through at that. And then the phone goes, and it's the Royal Bank of Scotland going, we need this money. And I did the one thing that is textbook 101, don't do if you open a business or own a business, is wasn't answering the phone, wasn't opening envelopes, and wasn't asking for help. The absolute trifecta of getting it horribly, horribly wrong. And it was everything. It was HMRC, it was creditors, it was Alan and Linda, it was the Royal Bank of Scotland, it was everything. So, and my grandpa died that week. Right? So you're sitting in the salon, and I'll never forget it, right? So the day before, Alan and Linda had got me down to Middlepenny, and it was over. This was the, you know, you're done, you know, it's all finished, we're taking it off you, and it's over, you know.
So they invited you down to Middlepenny?
Oh, yeah, it's one of those times I've ever been in the living room, usually in the kitchen. Like, if you get in the living room, it's no good. I don't go in now because of PTSD. I just don't. Even if Alan's going, come see this telly. I'm like, no, can't he sit in that couch?
Dougie's redecorated.
Oh,
don't want to see it.
No, I know, it's like, it's all like that. I'm sitting in the living room, and it's like, right, you're done. Your time's up. Well done, thanks very much, but it's over. There's no way you're getting out of this, you know. And I didn't have a plan, because there was no mind space to even contemplate the idea of fixing it, you know, that way, because it was, you know, it was emotionally, spiritually, financially, it was the whole shebang.
So did you know at this point how bad it was?
No, I was under absolutely no illusion to the by then to the penny. And it was, I mean, if you take all of it, I mean, it's, I don't know, I reckon I was in a 200 grand hole or something like that. I mean, it was brutal. But I did have my flat, I had my house. And old Mount Florida saved me. God love it. All that, the party flat was just, you know, all the stories of that house was
every concert, windows open.
Completely true. You know, that way from getting it and living through it, and you know, it's saved my bacon so many times, that flat, for so many reasons. And if the walls could tell stories, it would be unbelievable. But so that was it. It was basically all chips in. The flat's going to kind of save the day. It didn't really save the day. I've just got gratuity. We just spoke to everybody and went, this is the situation, this is where we're at, blah, de, blah, de, blah. And then just went for it. Same thing. Built a succession of teams throughout that period and just did the punters. But again, it was the same mistake in that all of the other stuff that gave you joy within the craft wasn't getting, those itches weren't getting scratched because you were so tied in to the thing and trying to fix it, and that makes you fall out of love with it to a certain extent. And I never wanted to be, I love it. I still, I'd still love, when I was lying on the floor with my bike crash, the first thing was, how am I going to cut hair? Oh no, my salon. Right. Normally when you crash your bike, you're meant to go, how's my bike? 2008, 2009, I'd smash my hand up. I'd get a big bike crash again, and I'd burst my hands. And I really thought it was finished at that point. I mean, I couldn't do it here. That's one of the longest periods when I've never physically cut somebody's hair because I'd done my knuckles and the tips of my fingers, and that was. I mean, I really at one point it looked like I wasn't going to get full movement. So again, first thought was, how am I going to cut hair? My 2 TIAs, my too many strokes. Instantly you're lying on the floor and then all you're thinking about is, how am I going to cut hair? So I never ever wanted that to go. So in that period of time, it was starting to really become a problem. So the interesting thing with my shop is the 21 years it's been opened, 3 of them have been the only time where there's been any economic peace in the UK, because you had credit crisis, austerity, COVID, and now we're just planning on blowing the world up, and there's no money left, that way. So in all of that time, I actually kind of go, and I've still got it. It's still opened, and we've done well, and we've done all the things. But the lead into COVID, that's when I had a massive mind shift in sort of who, what, where, and why.
So what motivates you? What was that motivation?
Well, why is it not working? Do you know what I mean? Like actually sitting down and going, this isn't working. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. The going back to what we're talking about with David, how I saw 15, how I saw Buchanan Street, how I saw 24, and very much at the time how I saw Great Western Road, because Great Western Road at that point took over the mantle of being the mad trendy one that did all the daft stuff, was absolutely mobbed, and most of the art team members were in there. So that then, and it was winning Salon of the Year a lot. So that became a kind of inspiration. I want my shop to be like that. I'm miles away from that, right? Why am I not successful? What am I doing? What am I doing wrong? Because it's not the team's fault. It's not the stylist's fault. It's not the shop's fault. It's not, you're the leader. You're the captain of the ship, and it's either working or it's not working. So at that point, what am I not doing that Alan and Linda were doing? And I literally got a bit of paper out and did a mind map of when I was growing up, what did Alan and Linda do to make the salon a success? And we'd done a kind of video set up, a bit like what we've done now with the origin story. I'd made a film for Congress, kind of doing that whole thing of how did we get to where we got to. And I'm constantly going back and going, they educated themselves first and foremost. Whereas I was sending everybody onto stuff. I'm paying for all these courses, sending everybody away to these things. And the one person that wasn't getting it was me. Now, part of that was, get to stay in a nice hotel for a night, go to a really great seminar, meet other hairdressers, remind yourself why you're in this organisation. Franchises don't come for free, right? It's not like Alan and Linda love us and just wanted to give us a shop, right? So there is a cost to these things, and that's got to be maintained. So if you're deciding to be a franchise, then you've got to go with the benefits that come with that, and that's being a face, that's turning up at events. Now, don't get me wrong, for not a second do I think people in the hairdressing industry know who I am. I'm the guy in the hat standing beside Alan. Right now, if I was on fire in the street, it wouldn't be, Riccardo Corvi from Rainbow Room International's on fire, put that fire out, right? But somebody might go, that guy in the hat that works with Alan's on fire, right? So I knew that I wanted to go back to that. You know, I wanted to go to Salon International. I wanted to go to the awards. I wanted to go to seminars and get taught. So it was about a yearly plan of doing that. But what actually happened was Schwarzkopf started these business builder lunches. And I went down to Manchester for the first one of that. Kind of stayed round. It was in a super amazing posh hotel in the middle of Manchester that I didn't stay in. I was in the Travel Lodge next door at £42. And I drove down and I went to that, and the team at Forest were there, who are our computer company, product placement and all that. Thank you for my water bottle, Forest. And a couple of their guys did a presentation. It was brilliant. It was just really good. And I thought, that just reminds me of the things that Alan and Linda used to do. And then there was a couple of other people talking about different things. Then you were networking with other salon owners who were either going through the same things, or it turns out you were actually doing better than they were and you're hard on yourself, or had great ideas that you would maybe want to copy. And at that point, I'm like, right, okay, that was a massive turning point. And then COVID hit. Aye.
So 2020, 21, 22.
It's a blur in it. I can't even remember now. You kind of talk about things before and after COVID. So like everybody, came back. It was just a war zone. I couldn't even imagine working in those conditions. Again, I can't believe how the team did it, wearing all the stuff, all the barriers, all the things. The amount of clients we did, you know, for all that we were spacing, for all we reduced appointments, and the bit to get over to people was everybody was here, was at the worst it had ever been. You know, I can remember standing and feeding my meter, day 3, out in the street, and there was a girl who'd clearly done a root tint on her highlights. So she had a full head of bleach highlights, orange roots, had then went heavy with the silver shampoo, and the ends were purple. And in my head, I'm praying to God that she wasn't one of our clients and was coming into this. And I think that's going to give my team a nervous breakdown. They're not going to get through doing that. Thankfully, she wasn't one of our clients. Our clients were really well behaved, actually, in Rainbow. I know we'd done a million videos going, please don't colour your own hair. So, but we did get through it, you know. We got through it.
And how did you get through it? Like, because I mean, it was tough.
Yeah.
So who did you lean on, and who was your support?
Well, we leaned on each other. I mean, obviously, my home life had got like beyond super stable by that point, and you know, Jackie's just this, you know, behind every great man, all that kind of stuff. She's actually in front of me. She's not behind me. You know, I always laugh when people go that. Behind every great man, she's standing in front, pulling me by the tie. So I had that, you know, I had that stability at that point, and somebody to lean on and talk to, you know. But, you know, again, pardon the phrase, you take any shit. You know, there's no kind of, like, it's usually dry your eyes and go on with it, you know. But she would always have a positive outcome. So she was there. But the team were amazing. They worked their socks off, you know. Some of the team members had just joined. We had people leave, did that whole thing of taking the furlough and chucking it when it was time to come back. But, you know, from that crew that came through, you know, which will be Isabella, it'll be Rachel, obviously, who's been, you know, she's been the longest with the team, and she's the advert.
Yeah.
I'm not the advert in that shop. Rachel's the advert in that shop. I mean, that's what we're trying to create, you know, and she was amazing. And obviously the front of house, because at that time Millie was there, but then also Kat came in around about that kind of time, so that was great. Rona had joined the company just at sort of that period as well, and had done really well. So they all the assistants, all the team at that time, they just all worked their socks off. But the weird thing for me was we got through it, it started to calm down, starting to go okay, and then next minute I'm disabled on the floor in the toilet in the house on a Thursday going, this is new. And then that's the next journey, wasn't it?
So for those who don't know, because you know we know, but the hundreds of people who hope this podcast is going to
thousands of people
like and share. So do you want to explain actually like what happened? Where was your health at? What happened?
Well, I was fine. That's the bit. So 2 COVID jags in, all that stuff, I started to get absolutely exhausted. Like, I've had 2 big carpet blow dries, style dries in a row. I was done crawling. Obviously my office is up the stairs in my masonry. Crawling up the stairs. And obviously you're just like, oh, I'm just tired, and we've been through a really stressful period, and blah, 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 and you're juggling all that you're juggling. And it's that same thing, just go on with it. And just brushing my teeth one morning, and next minute, bosh, I'm on the floor. Can't move my hand, can't move my leg, can't move my arm. And I'm out the game, and it was like, oh, all right, this is different. But the weird thing with the first one was, as quick as it was happening and it was over, so it all came back in reverse really fast. So my legs started to work straight, my foot and my legs started to work, so I could stand up. So protocol with a stroke, check yourself in the mirror. So there was no slopey face. I was still as ugly as I was before I had it. And that was okay. So I was able to sort of, they reckon it was the calmest phone call they've ever got of somebody having a suspected stroke. Obviously, I'd phoned the salon first to say I wasn't coming out to do my clients. I didn't actually phone 999 first. I phoned the salon, and Jackie's like, do you think you just lay on your arm funny when you were sleeping? I'm like, no, it's a wee bit more than this. And she got a fright when I said, I think I'm going to phone the doctor, because I'm the last. And my doctor's is just, like, it's not even 10 yards away from my house. He's like straight across the house. It's my doctor's surgery. So phoned in, like, right, Mr. Corvi, if you'd like to kindly hang up, phone for 999 and they'll be with you shortly. So next minute, whoosh, the ambulance is there. I'm away to Cross House, and they're checking me out, and I was in for a couple of days, and I had 4 days off. I took 4 days off for the first stroke, and it was just a massive TIA, but they have no idea. To this day, I've no idea. It's a ginormous drop in blood pressure, and they don't really know what it was. As usual, I end up, there was like a 4 and 4 to a room. The girl to the left is chatting away, and I'm just kind of get the headphones in, I'm dinging it all, right, I'm just no interested, I'm kind of feeling sorry for myself, toys at the pram. They've came and told me no driving licence for 4 weeks. I'm like, what? No car, no bike, 4 weeks, I'm not going to be happy, And then, so the next day I know I'm getting out, so I'm in Kilmarnock. So Kilmarnock have their Halloween the week before, Killoween.
Oh yeah,
so and they go for it, by the way. It's like,
it's a whole situation,
big thing. So surprisingly enough, you'll be shocked to know that I had hundreds of chocolate and tons of sweeties in this bag. So I'm now giving it out to the 3 women in the room, right? And there was a wee posh woman in the corner, and she was really quiet, and she never really said anything. She was really upset she wasn't getting out for the weekend. So she got all the Lindor, gave her all, like, right, you're getting the posh chocolate. Don't tell them you're getting it. She got all that. So I'm handing out to the rest. Anyway, the girl here's going on about the Italian thing, and I know a guy, and I'm like, I'm not going to know the guy. I know the guy, and he owned nightclubs and all that. And I went, all right, okay. And my mum used to work there, and I'm like, my big brother was a DJ in there. I went to school in Linwood. She went, I went to school in Linwood. And I'm going, yeah, but what age are you? She's 10 years younger than me, and she's like, you don't know so and so, do you? And I went, I was in primary 1, which I knew the guy my whole life. Just typical with me. I've had, the best moments of my life. I'm sitting beside somebody, and you're sitting on a plane. Corvi, do you know so and so? So it's a bit like that. You're even lying in the hospital room. You're like, oh, here we go, Or somebody thinks you're a hairdresser, find out you're a hairdresser, and they start asking you questions about shampoo or whatever, So it was weird. It was a wake-up call.
Did you make changes then?
Yeah, I went down to 5 days a week, which the doctor found hilarious. He's going, yeah, so if you cut your hours, I'm like, yeah, 5 days a week, and 5 clients a day, and I pretty much stuck to that. There'll be the odd, if it's short, there'll be 6. If there's not a lot of colour, there'll be 6. If it's ginormous, I'm going to become a short-haired specialist when I'm 55. I've got 3 years to go as the recording time of the podcast. but my days of long blow dries and style dries and balayages will be over.
And do you feel that that's made a difference to
massive,
your health and just to your general well-being in life? And
yeah, I struggle a wee bit. I struggle a wee bit with the Sundays off. I'm not good at days off, right? And it's just, and I've been down that road, because even right back sort of relationships, 96 and all that, I would really struggle and days off, and it's a bit like anything. Like if I know I'm not going to finish a thing, I can't start it, which is why I stopped doing editing. It's why I do not do anything to do with this podcast other than come up with the concept, present it, and then William behind these screens makes the whole thing possible, because I knew I'd started doing a lot of editing stuff, and it was driving me nuts. And I don't know if it's partly being a hairdresser, because you're used to finishing the thing. You know, I get to see my end result, I get to see the fruit of my labour, and I get to see it. But also went down like 2008, 9 to get through all that period. You know, I went and saw massive amounts of help. You know, at that bit in 2008, 2000, I went down a full, you know, therapy thing for about a year and a half to figure out. And surprisingly enough, I'm probably on a lot of spectrums. Right.
I think we all are.
Short corner. And
I think hairdressing's good at its own wood.
So that's where the day off thing's an issue. Because I can't, if I need to do two things, but I'm not doing them the way I want to do them, I can't. And then again, if they're not going to be brilliant, it's like, well, I'm not getting out of bed. And it's that thing. So it's the simple thing in a day off is I must shave, which I got from, God, you know, I can never remember the guy. He was Tony Blair's press secretary. Oh man, that's terrible. Alistair Campbell. David's sitting on the couch in the background, people, by the way. Alistair Campbell did an amazing, it was a 3-part documentary about depression. It was Stephen Fry, Alistair Campbell, I can't mind the third guy. And Alistair Campbell's whole thing, you know, he kind of ran that government at that point, really. You know, that he's this, you know, and he was always seen as the angry Scottish guy in charge, you know. And he chronic depression, couldn't get out the house and all that kind of stuff. And these two things where he had a blind that was halfway up his landing, and he knew if he didn't open the blind and brush his teeth, he wasn't going to see the world that day. But the problem is that day would go on to be a week, and that stuck with me. That just absolutely, along with the help that I got and the people that I spoke to just understand where my own head was at and get me through that period of just opening the envelopes, answering the phones and asking for help, was the shave.
So if I was to ask you, tell me three things that you do now to actively look after yourself, whether it's your mental well-being, your physical well-being, what would be your, you know, there could be people that listen to this podcast that are like, do you know what, that's me, and I, you know, but just 3 simple things that you do that you find that really help you.
Right. Well, Jackie knows when it's not great, because I've got a IKEA salad bowl that becomes my pasta dish. And if the lasagna's going over the sides of the dish, she's like, right, okay, and she'll get me out the house and she'll make me do things and she'll get me into a flow. But the main thing, the shaving thing, or the shaving thing's massive, but it's not a problem when it's work, right? There was kind of periods where I was off a lot and I wouldn't come to work and I wasn't being sick, and everybody thought it was partying and drinking and hangovers and all that kind of stuff, and it was the complete opposite. It was just, I don't want to see anybody, and everybody sees this guy, and it was like, covers over. It happened to me when I was 14 at school. My mum went to Ireland, and it must have just been a hormonal thing. My mum went to Ireland for 2 weeks, and I dogged school for the 2 weeks and stayed in my bed, and that was it. It was, so whatever happened in my life at that point, and I'd been down the journey because they went through everything, you know, when I went to therapy, and you know, and my childhood sounds like an absolute war zone, right? You know, it just does, but it wasn't, right? It was mine. But you know, when you talk to most people from the 70s or anything like that, you know, it was just mental. But that helped loads. But the getting up, the shaving, the brushing your teeth, that's mental. Being good to yourself, you know, little things, just wee things, you know, that way. But equally no spending money in crap, which is going to be a bit ironic because these motorbike helmets are going to change in every podcast. But finally they have earned their worth, right? But, you know, because you're doing that for a dopamine hit, you know, oh, I'll buy that thing, it's going to make me happy. Newsflash, I've bought everything. None of it makes you happy. And what actually happens is the bank balance and the credit card bill makes you even more unhappy. Becoming less of a stuff guy and more of a experienced person. But that's Jackie again, because she loves a departure lounge. You know, whereas I hated holidays, you know, because I didn't grow up. Mum and Dad didn't go anywhere. They were working. They were at their work. I still think I'm quite boring because I go to my work, I go home, I like my house, I like my missus. I'm happy, but you need to do these little, whether it's little things, whether it's somewhere beautiful to go for something to eat, somewhere to go in the car or go on the bike or whatever. But equally, I had a moment in Italy where I was going away on a bike trip, and my biggest issue is nothing's ever good. I'm the most uncontentable human being in the world. I've never done a great haircut. My shop's rubbish. I'm going to eat worms, right? That's my internal monologue at all times, right? So I'm sitting in Mugello. Last time Rossi was ever on the podium in Italy. And I've got my head in my hands, I'm looking on the floor, right? And I'm like, this is just a nightmare. I'm just like, I can't go on. This is just a nightmare, right? And I don't know whose voice it was. To this day, I don't know. The voice comes in my head and goes, look up. Right? Now, it might have been my voice, right? It might have been somebody's. I don't know whose voice it was. And I look up, right? And I'm in this amphitheatre in the absolute dream moment of my life. I've been trying to get to Mugello to see MotoGP and to see Rossi race in Italy forever. We'd managed to get Guido there 5 years previously, well, no longer than that. So, well, 18, it was 5 years, wasn't it? Because 2013, he nearly died in a bike crash. We were trying to recreate this trip to Italy to sort of signify that he was well and he was okay, and we were getting to Mugello to see this race. It was challenging for all the reasons it was challenging, but whatever happened, this voice went, look up. And that's when I started to be in the moment, because I was never in the moment. I was either excited, worried, planning there, and I was either regretting or thinking about there, and was never going, you're sitting in Mugello and it's 36 degrees and Ducati are winning and Rossi's on the podium and you did it and you rode your bike all the way here and you got to go to the Moto Guzzi factory and you got to do all these things. So rather than being that kid that looks back and goes, oh, that was great, then it's just, I'm now, today's great. You and I doing this is magic. David was all right, but you and I doing it is absolutely brilliant, right? So, so that's the thing. So being honest with yourself, are you well, are you happy, are you, looking after yourself that way. Being in the moment is massive, and get up, shave, get out of the house, is mass. Turn the telly off. I've struggled with reels. They got me. Mm-hmm. I kept away from reels because I knew they'd get me, and they got me 2 years ago, and I'm slowly but surely getting away from them. So it's massive, and everybody only ever see the other side. They don't see that. They just, oh, that guy, he's always happy all the time. Nah, I'm getting paid. You know what I mean? Because that's the other thing that's really important is Guido, my mum, and significant other, now being Jackie, they get the worst at you.
Oh, aye.
They don't get the good. They don't get, like they come in at the salon and you're like, hey, how you doing? Oh, you're all that, or you're on stage, or you're doing the podcast, and you're that guy. And then you go home and you shut the door and you go, and you become this other person. And that's not fair. So that's another thing, is actually going, no, they need to get the best. They're the three people in the world that deserve the best version of me, and everybody else is going to get this, other good version of me. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of how I work it now. That's what I do.
And that's, I'm really proud that I was asked to be part of this interview for you because I do know you. Like, I know all the nitty gritty, the ups, the downs, the like, you know, covering for you time and time again, and seeing, being able to read it and going, he's having a really bad day, and I need to bring it up for him and and help him through this. Whether you knew that was happening or not, and a lot of the time you probably didn't.
Well, probably not. To a certain extent, you know, it's interesting. My team are really on it now. My guys are really on that now when they go, right, where are you at? And I don't know whether that's been partly with the strokes and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, but they're amazing that way. But
the only salon team that everybody's fully qualified in first aid.
I know.
Everybody,
I know.
Your assistant starting first aid tomorrow.
First aid course, I know. Yeah, but what I've actually got DNR tattooed there. When we did the first aid courses, you leave me flapping on the floor because my life insurance, I want a legacy, and that's my life insurance, because Jackie and Mac will be looked after unbelievably well. But if I get past 65 and cop it for some annoying reason, it's going to be a nightmare. But no, I knew you had my back, and I knew you guys had a team, you know, not being funny. I knew you all loved me, and you looked after me, and you were all amazing. That was under no, but that was hopefully the team, because I think equally I would have hoped that, you know, I would have went to the coals and died for you guys as well, you know, that way, and I would hope my team know that. And there's a million books that tell you not to be that, boss.
Well, that is actually a question I had written down, and so that leads in quite good to this. So how are you different than the other leaders in our group? What makes you different from the other leaders in our group?
Oh God, well it's another line of 9,000 negatives in comparison to some of the leaders that I grew up. Are you kidding? You know, you're coming through because everybody's different. Everybody's amazing in the way that they are, and you know, you talk about the imposter syndrome. So you go down the road of, so you've got Will, David, John, Adrian, all had the shops before me, right? So you never really feel part of that gang, because they were all stylists.
They're the big boys.
They're the big boys, right? And so I'm in this weird, because there's me, and then there's everybody else, right? And that was always similar to growing up, because as an Italian household, you know, we were the weirdos in the street. You know, our house was the smelly house. Before there was curries and, you know, stinking of garlic and fish and chips and all that kind of stuff, you know, and you ate weird food. You know, your packed lunches were the weirdest packed lunches, you know, all the things. And you saw it as a negative. Whereas, you know, I'm sitting in an Italian restaurant yesterday, and all my pals were talking about coming to my house for their dinner, and I could cook at 11, and that would blow their mind. So it's that mind shift of going, no, actually all that was positive. But my Italian family, we're the only muggles, right? We're the only ones that my dad got to marry a Scottish girl, Scottish Irish. So we're not Italian enough for the Italians. We're not Irish enough for the Irish. We're not Scottish enough for, you know. So if an Italian team loses at football, all of a sudden I become Italian, right? Whereas if Juventus win, it's like, well, you're not even Italian. What are you talking about? You know, who are you supporting? You know, so even all of that was similar in my kind of psyche with Rainbow Room, and that going, well, I'm not quite in that gang, and I'm not quite in that gang, and that was really weird. So do I think about myself that way as a I don't know. I would actually struggle. See, the fundamental thing is that hopefully everybody knows, one, again, pardon the French, Linda, give a fuck, right? I really do, right? Whether it's the smallest thing or the biggest thing, I'm giving a fuck. I'll be in the trenches. I'm dying for it, right? I'm not, you know, there's a million times I could have either done something else or been somewhere else, but, you know, I'm Rainbow Room through and through, and I want to be part of the gang, you know what I mean? And you want to live up to the legacies that you grew under, and that hopefully that they just know I care. The funny thing was when we did the television programme, I came out the sensible one. That was the most terrifying of all of that. Even everybody was like that. Going, wait a minute, how are you coming out the you know, the sensible one? I don't take myself seriously at all in any way, shape or form. I take what I do seriously, but what I really take seriously, I would hope, is, you know, looking after. The biggest kick I'll always get is looking after assistants and turn them into stylists, which is why you know, I'm finding that quite difficult at the moment because it's not really happening. But yeah, in comparison to the other directors, I admire them all too much. But that was another, you know, you were talking about getting through COVID and getting through your down points. Now, you know, we've got the group chat. That group chat's worth its weight in gold, right? You couldn't actually pay for that much backup.
I know. Between
people, and that's right through to the news director and Tara, and right through to Alan and Linda. You know, people don't actually believe that you can pick your phone up right now and go, Alan.
Yeah, like, Linda. Oh, I've got a problem with this particular thing. Yeah. Right, okay, how do I do that? And you there's a person. Yeah. There is a person who has been through it, they've done it, they've made a mess of it at some point, they've come through the other side, and they are the expert in that particular thing. Yeah. Like, just always a text, like, have you got 5 minutes? I need to ask you a question.
And who's ever said no to you?
No, never.
Ever. There's never, and that was another thing with Alan and Linda, was that they never said no to anybody about anything. So as a salon owner, it was then, right, well, how do I facilitate not saying no, but also then Linda would go, but how are you going to do it? Right, it's just like, I'm not doing it for you. What? And with what? No budget. Right, again, like William got the budget.
I've got one more question for you, because me and David want to talk a wee bit about legacy and just like where we're going. So before we tag team very quickly with David, what is your proudest moment so far? I'm getting you back, Riccardo.
I know.
Getting you back.
I know. Obviously opening the shops and obvious, getting the salons is an obvious one, right? My proudest moment in hairdressing at this moment in time is still the fact that somebody picks you. Somebody either goes online, goes onto a phone and goes, can I have that guy? And you're that far into it that people still pick it. Watching an assistant qualify, turning round and hearing a consultation from this person that you used to have to teach to shake hands and look people in the eye, that's pretty amazing. But I don't know. If it was on stage, it was the Congress where Alan had just come back from his heart attack, and whoever was meant to do the last bit of the Congress they were stuck in the snow. Remember, they couldn't get through. There was somebody was meant to, whoever the keynote speaker was stuck in Heathrow. So the idea was that Alan was going to interview all the directors, and they put me on first, didn't they? Which was, in hindsight, was that not pretty stupid? Putting me put me on last so that then I've only got 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Don't put me on first. Right? So they put me on first, but I flipped it. Just straight away, flipped it. Because obviously it was about, he doesn't need to be here. You know, he doesn't need to be doing it. And we flipped it and we really interviewed that. It's actually my only thing where I wish we still had that bit of footage, wherever that is recorded or whoever's got that, if there's anybody's got it. I'd love to see that. So that's probably one of my proudest Congress moments. My proudest moment hasn't happened yet because I've not won Salon of the Year. Okay. That's what that's all I want. I want my guys and my team and my stylists to get to stand up there like you did and go, we did this. Mm-hmm. We did this. And then obviously Rachel winning. To see Rachel, I've got a photograph of Rachel with her award. Because there's cool Rachel and there's TikTok Rachel, right? And then there's what I call my Rachel, right? And there's a photograph of her with her award. And to think that we got somebody to be British Stylist of the Year at the British Hairdressing Awards, having grown up as you and I, as young hairdressers, going to that award and getting somebody from a Saturday girl to winning that award up a side street in a small pond, you know, I think is pretty amazing. So yeah, I would say that is definitely to date, you know, the idea that we did that, you know, all together to get to that point is probably my proudest moment, certainly as a salon owner, definitely.
Well, it's been amazing, Riccardo. Like, I've really enjoyed spending this time with you and finding out some things that I didn't know as well.
Well, I think some people will be like, oh, no, I thought this one was going to be the funny one. Well, don't worry, we'll bring David back in to lighten the mood.
Yes. Are we pausing? Are we?
Yeah, we'll pause and then we'll bring him back in.
Okay.
Listen, thank you, Dan. It was amazing.
Thanks.